in crime and really good friend, Faith Penn. I met Faith back in 2013 when I first started with the agency, and she came over to the Civil Rights Division. And I was a mediator at the time, and she was my scheduler. And she had always wanted to know about mediation and what was it like, and could she possibly do it? So the story is, and I tell this all the time, she had asked about it. I went and advocated for her, and they had some questions about her ability to do it. And I said, well, I don't think she's going to have any problems. And with that being said, they sent her through training, and Faith have hit the ground running. And she is a magnificent mediator as well as a caring individual. And a lot of times in our agency, we do telephonic mediations, and nobody really knows, what goes on or the person or anything like that. And they're really surprised that Faith is blind. So, it just really surprised them. And they always ask questions about what can she do? How can she do that? How successful is she? Can she give us a speech on that and everything else? So this is a perfect opportunity to ask questions of my friend, counterpart, and everything else. And with that being said, Faith Penn, please take the floor.
Thank you, Marcy. Hi, everybody. It's Marcy Santa. I'm Faith Penn, and I'll be speaking to you today about mediating with a visible disability. But before I go into that, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself and my blindness. I believe, at first glance, a lot of people can't tell that I'm blind unless you know me or see me with my cane. So at first glance, you can't tell. But growing up, I never had 20/20 vision or perfect vision. I had a poor vision or low vision, or I was considered legally blind or vision impaired, or whatever you want to call it, just because I had some vision. And what that means is, to give you a better idea, what that means is, growing up, I could see big things. I could see big objects. So I could see a person, right? But I couldn't tell the person's gender. I could see well enough to ride a bike, but if it's like of something on the ground in front of me, like maybe something white or something really light colored, I wouldn't be able to see that from my perceptive, from my position on the bike. I could still roller skate and things of that nature, but I couldn't go nearly as fast as everybody else. So I was still doing, growing up a normal kid or whatever, but there was a lot of things I could not see. I didn't grow up having a vehicle. My mom didn't have a car, so we were on the bus quite a bit. So when I had to take the bus, when the bus store is open, I'm constantly asking, hey, what bus is this? Because I couldn't see the bus number or the name of the bus or anything along those lines. So I could see a book, but I couldn't see the print inside the book. So stuff like that. That's just an idea of what I could see and could not see. So growing up, I grew up, like I said, visually impaired. I've always, been very active and things that I've done growing up. And I guess in middle school I did sports. In high school I went forward, continued to do sports. I did track, I did cheerleading. I even did some wrestling for a little bit. So I was very active growing up, but there were several things that I could not do because of my vision. So for example, when I was running track, I was doing well at first, right? I was doing well at first. I could see well enough to stay between the lines and run and do, some sprints and things. But there was a situation where I had to stop, at least in public school, and because I had an accident. So what was I doing? I was doing field events. I was doing field events and learning how to, I don't know what was I doing? I threw the shot plate. That's what it was. I threw the shot plate, and that's not that big of a deal. But I had to go retrieve it after I threw it. My coach was like, all right, you threw it, go get it. So I went to go get it or whatever, and I ran dance back into a fence. And they were like, oh no, you can't do track anymore, liability, da da da. Now back then I didn't know, that they're not supposed to be saying stuff like that. They're supposed to be working on me to try to figure it out. I didn't know any of that. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess my track career is over, so that was the end of that. But because of my poor vision, I was not doing well in math. So my mom sent me to the state school here in Austin, Texas, the Texas School for the Blind. So I went there to finish out my high school year so so the school could work with me on my math skills while I was attending the local high school here, and went to McCallum High School. So I was working through that, and at the School for the Blind, they also had track, but these people were trained to work with me as a blind person. So I got involved with track and got back involved with cheerleading. I became the captain. We won some championships. We did, we were doing well. It was great. Everything was beautiful. But after I graduated, then I needed to figure out, after when I was getting close to for me to graduate, I needed to figure out what I wanted to do, and I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I believe it was probably the last weekend before it was time for me to graduate. I had gone home, and this was right around the time. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that the Six Flags, but it was called Astro World in Houston. It was right before it shut down. I think it was the last weekend before it was going to shut down. And I had gone and I come back, I had fun, yada, yada, yada. And I come back to the school and I'm hanging out with my friends at the recreation center. And we're sitting around chatting, talking, not doing anything inappropriate, anything like that. But somebody else nearby was playing soccer, and they kicked the soccer ball, and the soccer ball hit a railing, and it ricocheted and hit me in my face. And that's actually how I lost my vision. So as I said, growing up, I had poor vision due to, well, I didn't say this, but it was due to glaucoma. But glaucoma is not what took my sight. It was actually a blow to the face, and which detached my retina. So that's how I lost my sight. And at that point, of course, I was freaking out. I was freaking out. I'm going to having at least some vision to zero vision in a matter of days. So it didn't happen immediately right then. What happened was, I got hit in the face. My eyes swelled up like huge, like probably as big as an egg or something. And then, I went to the doctor. They said they could not see inside of my eye due to the blood, and they had to wait for it to drain. So, but it was very, very shocking and very horrible. I felt horrible, and I was very depressed and got very upset about it. But I still needed to graduate. My mom was sympathetic. She was sympathetic, but she's like, hey, we got this far. You can work through this as well. She was one of those tough love people, which I love her for that. I do. It took me a little while, but once I got past the depression, I was like, okay, fine. I guess I'll go ahead and graduate because I don't have anything else to do. But it sucked for me because I was upset. It was also my last time going to my last track meet. I couldn't go anymore because I couldn't compete in my divisions and things of that nature. I didn't know how to run track as a totally blind person. I didn't know how to do the shot put as a totally blind person. I didn't know how to do long jump or triple jump as a blind person. So it was all wasted. In my mind, it was wasted. I'm like, I trained this whole time for this just so I can not go. And I was very upset and sad about that. But I said, okay, well, at least I graduated. Let's go ahead and graduate. So I graduated from high school. That was great. So then I needed to learn, I needed to learn how to be a totally blind person, since it didn't appear as if my vision was coming back anytime soon or at all. So I decided to go to a training facility called the Louisiana Center for the Blind in Reston, Louisiana. It's a 9-month adult training program for adjustment to blindness. For adjustments to blindness. So I went there, stayed there for 9 months, learned what I needed to do. Well, let's go backward. I had a huge breakdown probably my first week. And I was super irritated. I was learning to use a cane because, again, I didn't use a cane. I didn't use any of that. But I was learning how to use a cane. And everybody there, no matter if you're blindsided, whatever, have some vision, no vision, whatever, you have to wear blindfold. So I had this blindfold on. I had my cane. I was with my instructor. We're walking and learning how to cross the street. And I was getting irritated because my instructor explained to me, hey, Faith, you're walking east on Mississippi and you're going across Bonner. And currently Mississippi is on your left. When you cross Bonner, Mississippi is going to be on your right. How does that work? I don't know, but it's called a dog leg or whatever. So he was like, your Mississippi's on your left. When you cross Mississippi, is going to be on your right. I want you to cross the street and continue towards the apartments. And I said, I'm thinking no problem. I had crossed the rest of the streets with no problem. So I'm like, okay. So we get there and I cross it, Mississippi still on my left. And I crossed that street like a million times, at least it felt like it. So I crossed the street several times. It was probably like maybe 3 or 4 times. And I got so irritated because each time he'll ask me where Mississippi was, and I would stop and listen and hear cars going by on my left. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I couldn't figure it out. And so the last time I crossed the street, he asked me, where's Mississippi? I said, it's on my left. He said, where's it supposed to be? Like on my right. He's like, well, get it on your right. So I crossed Mississippi and put it on my right. And then once I got across, I got so mad and I took my blindfold off and I threw my cane and I'm like, crying like mad tears. I'm mad. I'm like walking back and forth and just talking loud. I was just having this huge meltdown, and I was very upset because I couldn't figure it out. And I thought, I'm like, I can't do this as a blind. I could not be a blind person. I did not know how to be a blind person. I knew how to be a vision impaired person, not a totally blind person. And I just had a huge meltdown. And after I had my meltdown, after I had my meltdown, I approached my instructor, who, by the way, was just sitting there. He didn't say anything. He didn't try to stop me. He didn't try to console me. Nothing. No words of encouragement. Nothing. He just stood there, and that was making me mad too, because I wanted him to yell at me. I wanted him to do something, but he didn't do anything. So anyway, finally, after I'm done melting down, and I approach him, and I'm like, Roland, his name is Roland. Roland, what do you want me to do? And he says, I want you to find your blindfold. I want you to find your cane so we can continue to the apartments. And I was so mad, but that is something that I needed, because at that time, he's telling me, I know you can do this. You just need to get through. You need to get through these emotions. So once I get past those emotions, I was able to go to the apartment and make it back to the center with no issue. And I crossed the street finally. After a million times, I finally crossed Bonner correctly to keep Mississippi on the right side on the correct side that it was supposed to be on. So anyway, that happened. And I was in Louisiana, Ruston, Louisiana, and I did that for 9 months. While I was there, I signed up for college classes. I went to Louisiana Tech for a little bit, trying to see if college was something that I wanted to do. And I decided, no, I don't want to do college. I can't stand school. I took this class as a blind person. I made a C. I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to make A's and B's, or anything along those lines. And I don't want to fail, so just don't do it. So I was not interested in going to college. However, my best friend, her name is Carla, she was in college at the time, and she, we were talking, and she was like, well, what are you going to do after you leave? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm probably going to go home and, I don't know, get pregnant or something. that's what was going on around in my neighborhood back then. Females were not going to school. They were, after high school, they were getting pregnant and just doing whatever they were doing. So I'm like, I guess I'll go home and get pregnant. I didn't know what else to do. So she's like, well, no, don't do that. Just come to college. I'm like, no, I hate school. You just don't know. You just don't understand. I do not want to go to school. And she was like, no, come here with me. It's going to be fun. Every time I'm around, we always have fun together. It'll be great, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. But I really didn't take her seriously at all. I just sort of blew her off. I said, okay, but I knew I wasn't going to apply or anything like that. So I continued on, and we had this new person to come to the center. And she quickly befriended me. We quickly clicked, and we were just talking, and she asked me the same question. What are you going to do at the center? I'm like, I don't know, probably go home, get pregnant, get a job, same old, same old. And she's like, get pregnant? I was like, yeah, probably, it happens. And she was like, well, what about school? I'm like, no, my friend wants me to go to school, but I don't want to. She wants me to apply to go to this school, and I don't want to go. She's like, that's it, we're going. So she literally dragged me out of my apartment and took me over to her apartment, and we filled out the application right then and there to go to Texas Tech University, and I got in. So, and once I got the acceptance letters, my mom was like, oh, babe, I'm so proud of you and all that good stuff. And I was proud of myself. And I said, okay, well, what am I going to do? I guess I'm going to go to this school with not knowing anything. And by the way, after I graduated from high school and decided to go to LCB, my vision, the blood in my eye, it was draining. So I still couldn't see, but I could see the blood draining. So from my perspective, it was red and white. And to me, the red represented the blood, and the white was the light that was coming in after the blood drained. But I still could not see. I couldn't see shadows. I couldn't see anything, just red and white. That's what it looked like to me. So just a side note there. But anyways, so I went to Texas Tech. Me and my friend was there. We're there, and it was fun my freshman year. I mean, I didn't do as bad as I thought I was gonna do. I had to get lots and lots and lots of assistive technology that I had never heard of before. I had to learn how to use that. And I had to learn how to work with the instructors who had never worked with a blind person before. And, just so it was a learning experience for me. I had to advocate for books, because a lot of the time they're like, oh, well, you can't do it. You can just do this, and try to get me to do something that something all the rest of my classmates were not doing, and I wasn't having it. I'm like, if they're doing it, I'm doing it too. So let's figure it out. You got to work with me. And so once I figured out how to communicate that to the instructors or to the professors, then college wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that was my freshman year. The summer of my freshman year, my vision came back. It was weird. So all of the blood that was in my eye drained, and my vision came back, and I'm like, oh yes, I can see. But I still continue to, use my cane and use those non-visual techniques, because by that point I had already gotten used to, living as a blind person. So I'm like, okay, this is great. I can use my cane and use my vision and still be successful. So it was great. So that was freshman year, during the summer. Then during my sophomore year, my vision was still there. It was great. Had a great sophomore year. I decided after my sophomore year in college, I was going to move off campus. Me and a few friends, we had already picked out our apartment. Everything was great. Summer of my sophomore year, beautiful, nice, no problem. Then my junior year in college, it was the end of the first semester. End of the first semester. I only remember that because we went to this huge party and it was great. I had fun, no problem. Everybody was dancing, lots of alcohol, all that good stuff. It was a great time. And I remember the next day, I'm walking out of my room in my apartment, and I'm going to get water from the water dispenser. And as I'm turning around, I literally see my vision going away, and it was really weird. I turned around and I could see, like I said, my vision was very poor before, so I could see the opening to my door. Of course, I couldn't see anything that was in that opening, but I was looking at the opening to my room, and it went from seeing that opening to seeing nothing but light. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I didn't freak out because I didn't want my roommates to freak out, so I just calmly went to my room, and I'm freaked out in private, and I called my mom, and I'm crying again. Mom, it went away. I think it's gone for good now. Da da da. And she's like, my mom was encouraging, Faith, you can do this. You have the skills now. You can do this. Blah blah blah. We got through that. But it was still sad to me. I'm like, just knowing that it was gone for good, I felt like it was a tease. I'm like, when it went away the first time, I felt like it shouldn't have come back at all because it just teased me. But anyway, so it went away, and I was like, okay, well, I need to finish school. So second semester of my junior year, completely blind all the way through my senior year. No vision came back, so I just figured it wasn't coming back, and it hasn't come back since. So it's been gone since then. So then after that, I graduated from college, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a job. And I'm originally from Dallas. I decided I was going to get a job and work and support me and my mom. That was that was my goal. And I went to school. My major was in public relations, so I wanted to be an events coordinator. And I applied for so many jobs. I was applying and going on interviews, and on paper, I was beautiful. Everybody wanted me to come in for interviews or whatever, but as soon as I got there, showed up with my white cane, it was a different story. It went from, oh man, we can't wait to interview you, look like the best candidate, da da da. It went from that to, oh, well, I think that so here comes the stuttering, here comes the excuses, here comes we don't think we're going to be able to accommodate you, here comes you're a liability, all of that stuff. I have to deal with all of that stuff. And back then I was ignorant, and I did not know that I was being discriminated. I didn't know I was being discriminated against. But I knew that it wasn't right, but I didn't know that there was something I could do. And I'll come home, from interviews, crying, Mom, another one, they don't, they said on the phone I look good, and through email they're saying that I'm the best candidate, and then when I get there they don't want to hire me, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And this went on for 3 years. 3 years. Dallas was not showing me any type of love whatsoever. No love whatsoever. There was this one really nice guy. I remember this. I went on the interview, and I was, I know I was feeling dejected because I was looking all poor in the mouth and just looking crazy. And I was in the elevator, and he says, "It looks like you're having a bad day." I'm like, "Yeah, I just went on the interview, and I know I'm not going to get the job." They're saying things like liability and things of that nature. And he's like, "Oh, that's not right. That's not right." And he's like, well, hey, I don't need anybody full time, but I do need somebody part time. Would you be willing to come work with me? And I was thinking in my head, yes, 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 but I always want to ask questions first because what am I doing? I don't want to be like, doing something I'm not going to be able to do. And he's like, oh, you'll be selling insurance. And I was like, I'll get back to you. I'll let you know, because I didn't want to share. I didn't want to sell insurance. I didn't go to school to sell anything. I want to help plan or do something. And I even called my old job back. I didn't mention this before, but I called my old job, Dallas Morning News. I worked for Dallas Morning News for a summer, And I called them, hey, are you guys looking for anybody? Da, da, da. And do you need anything? Like, no, we're not hiring right now. So that was out too. But anyway, going back to this person, I told him, hey, no, well, I didn't say no, but I say I'll get back to you. And I didn't get back to him saying anything negative or positive, but I did say, hey, no, that's not something I'm interested in, but thank you for the opportunity. And after I did that, I freaked out over that too, because I'm like, that was probably going to be the only time I was going to get a job. I could have took it anyway, even though I didn't want to do it. I should have just taken it. And I was just second guessing myself and just feeling really depressed. And one day I called my friend, she lived in Austin. She's like, you need to come to Austin. Austin is very blind friendly. You have the Chris Cole Rehabilitation Center out here. You have the School for the Blind. So the city is used to seeing blind people. Just come out, give it a try. If you don't like it, you can always go home. I said, okay. And I just, literally the next day I told my mom, hey mom, I'm moving to Austin. And she, my mom didn't want me to go, but I was like, look, I need a job. If I get a job, I'll move you out here with me. I just had all these plans, just ready. So I packed up everything and moved to Austin, and I lived in Pflugerville for about 6 months. And that wasn't working for me because I couldn't get to job interviews. There was no public transportation in Pflugerville. It was even though that's where I wanted to be, I wanted to live in Pflugerville, but there was no public transportation. So I quickly realized I have to be in the city because I have to be able to get around. I need to be able to get around. And back then there was no Uber or Lyft. So it was either a taxi or the bus. That's it. Okay. So then after that, then I sorry about that. After that, I moved on and I went and I applied for the School for the Blind. I applied for all these other places. And then after I applied for these places, I finally got in at the School for the Blind. But I realized in my mind, I'm like, look, I don't want to work here for the rest of my life. My goal was to work somewhere else. But I said, if I can't work anywhere else, I guess this will be it. So I went ahead and worked there for 4 months. And then the Texas Workforce Commission hired me. And I was like, yes, thank you, Lord Jesus. I'm really happy to be here. I was working over the unemployment insurance department as a tech writer. And it was fun. It really was fun, but I knew that it still wasn't something I wanted to do. And after a year of working there, I received a call from HR. And they were like, hey, Faith, we're looking at your resume, and on there it says that you went to school for public relations, and we're looking for someone to be the scheduling coordinator over in the Civil Rights Division. Would you be interested in going to help build this division? And I said, I don't know. I could try. What are the details? Da da da. And I ended up accepting that job. I went over to the Civil Rights Division. That was the same day. Marcy and I started on the same day. And they told me, hey, Faith, you're going to be coordinating mediations for these 2 mediators. And I said, what is a mediator? I don't even know what that is. What is a mediator? And, at the time, the HR person, they explained to me, just basically what mediation was. Mediation is this is what they're going to be doing, this is what your job is. So I said, okay, fine, let's go, let's do it. So I was scheduling for Marcy and this other mediator, her name was Evelyn. And, basically I was just calling people, it was admin work. It was doing admin work. And some people were asking me, hey, can you tell me what, people who are not represented by attorneys, can you tell me what mediation is? And I said, hey, sure. And I would put them on hold and I would go Google mediation because I didn't know what it was either. And I was like, oh man, as I was learning about it, I'm like, this seems very interesting. So I asked Marcy and Evelyn if I could, sit in on one of their mediations to see what it's about. I sat in on their mediation and I fell in love with mediation at that time. As Marcy said before, I asked if I could get certified for it, or if I can learn how to do mediations, and they immediately told me, no, you can't. We need you in this coordinating position. It costs a lot of money for you to go get your 40 hours. Not at this moment, yada, yada, yada. And they told me that. At the same time, the other mediator, Evelyn, she retired. And I was like, this would be perfect. If I go get my 40 hours, I could be the second mediator. And I asked again and they said no. And I didn't know, Marcy tells the story that she was advocating for me. I didn't know she was advocating for me. I knew that I was advocating for me, but I didn't know that Marcy was advocating for me in the background. So I was advocating for myself. Hey, this is why I should do it. I'll be a good asset. I'm a fast learner, yada, yada. The answer was still no. And that was that year. So the next year, same thing. I'm still continuing to ask about 40 hours, going to mediation, and finally he said yes. He meaning our director. He says yes, you can go. It's a lot of money. He kept telling me it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and I'm like, you won't be sorry. I got this. I'm a fast learner. I just saying all this stuff. Very excited. So my first mediation that I had. It was fine because it was over the phone. My second, no, not second or third. What was this? It was my fourth mediation. Okay, so my fourth mediation was my very first in-person mediation. So back then at our building, we had to go greet our parties and walk them in. So I walk out with my cane and I say, I say the person's name, and I'm assuming because I heard no noise. I'm assuming that they were probably sitting there with deer in the head, like like that, like, oh my gosh, she's blind. Is she talking to me? Is that my name? Because they didn't say anything. And I'm like, I don't remember the person's name, so let's make up a name. Dan, are you here? Dan? And he didn't say anything. Then finally he's like, oh yes, ma'am, I'm right in front of you. I'm right in front of you. I'm like, okay, well, good. I'm gonna be your mediator. Follow me this way. And I can only think that he was astonished because he's talking to this blind person. I can't imagine that I don't know if he met any other blind people before, but so he's walking with me, and he didn't say anything, and I lead him into the room, no problem. I go out to get the second party. It wasn't the same thing. They were a little bit more reactive. So I said their name. They came on and put them in the room. So after the mediation, that mediation was successful, by the way. But after the mediation, Dan or Dave or whatever the name is I gave him, he asked me, how long have you been blind? I didn't think you were going to be able to do this because you can't, you're, I don't want to be mean, but you're blind. And I'm like, blind is not a negative word. Blind is not a negative word. You can say that I'm blind because I am. So I talked to him about it and talked to him about mediation and put him at ease, talked to him about my blindness and put him at ease. And, it turned out to be okay. And I got more comfortable doing that. Then we moved over to our second building, and I had this other mediation where they didn't freak out because I was blind or anything like that, not initially or whatever, but we were sitting in the private caucuses, and the attorney, not the actual party, but the attorney, she was upset for whatever reason. I can't remember why she was upset, but she tried to take it out on me, and she says she was looking at a document, and she's like, well, what am I supposed to do? You can't even see this document. And I didn't say anything, but she knew that she was out of line. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, that's okay. And I finished the mediation. We got it resolved or whatever. And afterwards, she apologized. And I was like, look, please don't assume that just because I am blind that I cannot mediate this case, or I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't have any knowledge. I know what I'm doing. My blindness has nothing to do with my knowledge, my brain or anything along those lines. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer. But going forward, just be careful what you're saying. Be careful who you're taking your frustration out on. And she apologized or whatever, and it was fine. In other situations, I had I have so many examples of how people, when they first see me, they either freak out or they ask me questions. Well, I don't think you're going to be able to do this. You're blind, and how's a blind person supposed to mediate my case? Or so I stopped telling them because it should not make a difference whether or not I'm blind or sighted or deaf or whatever. If I'm able to do the job, that's what should matter. I made a mistake on a telephonic mediation once, and I'm talking, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I told you this, but I'm blind. And this is the attorney saying, oh, well, you're blind. Well, how are you going to be able to do this case? And if you're blind, how are you reading this email? If just stuff like that, and those are legit questions, but it's a time and a place for it, there's a time and a place for it. Ask me after the mediation, or ask me, later down in the road, or something along those lines. Right now, you should be focusing on your client, in my opinion. I had even coworkers who told me that, hey, Faith, when I first met you, I thought that you just sat around and checked email all day. I didn't know that you actually worked. And I said, what? I've been working here for blah, blah, blah years, and you think that I check email all day? Well, I didn't know what you did. I know they say you're a mediator, but I thought they probably just gave you that job, because you're, I don't want to say blind, but, because you're, you can't see. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, you're rude. I don't want to talk to you right now. So I didn't, I just want to say, I guess in closing or whatever, I feel like I didn't really share a lot about mediating with a visible disability, but I did want to share some. I hope that I shared some examples of how not to treat someone who's different. Well, I guess I'll keep talking. Never mind. Oh, okay. So I'll give some more examples of situations that I've run into. There's a situation where I was mediating, and this came from the client, and and I overheard them. So they didn't really say it directly to me, and I didn't mean to overhear them, but I was walking up to the door as they were saying it. But I was doing an in-person mediation. The complaining party was on one side, in one room. The responding party is in the other room. I'm walking up to the complaining party, and he's telling his attorney, "Hey, yeah, well, I don't feel comfortable. I don't really think she can do this. She can't even see." And I walked in at the time. I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to be honest. I did hear what you're saying, and that's okay. If you do not feel comfortable with me mediating your case, I can get another mediator for you to mediate this case." And of course he's like, "Hey, I didn't know that you could hear me. I was like, look, I wasn't trying to overhear you or anything. I was approaching the door when you happened to say it. No problem. My feelings are not hurt. I will tell you this, I am very capable and very willing to help you if you would like for me to help you. But if you do not feel comfortable, please, let me know and I'll get somebody else to mediate the case for you." And that's been my attitude for a lot of things, for a lot of people who don't feel comfortable with me mediating their cases. I would love to help them, but I'm not going to force my services on them. I'm not going to try to prove myself to anybody. If you believe that, or not you, but if people believe that I am not capable of mediating the case just because I happen to be someone who's blind, that is 100% completely fine, and I will help you find another mediator. That's where I am with it. I'm doing great. I don't know if Marcy's told you guys, but I started my own business, and hopefully I hope to be out there in the world mediating and arbitrating relatively soon. So if I run into those things at my business where people are like, "Oh, I didn't know you were blind. I want to get another firm." I'm going to say, "Okay, that is perfectly fine. I can help you find somebody if you want to." But I'm at the point in my life where I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I know I can do it, and I hope that whoever is using my services will have enough faith in me and know that I can do it as well. I don't know how much time we have right now. I hope that this was helpful to you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you, Faith. Do you mind answering any questions or anything that anybody would have?
If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. Don't feel pressured.
Is somebody moderating the questions, or is there any questions? I can't see.
Well, I'm curious, Faith, if that attorney you were just talking about did you end up mediating that case after all?
Which one?
The one you said that you overheard the attorney.
Yeah, they allowed me to mediate it, and we did get it resolved. It was great.
That's good. I just was curious about that. So
yeah, we did get that one resolved.
Faith, I was wondering if you feel that you have any advantage that you're blind, in that I have been told that when you lose one sense, you're more perceptive with other senses. Do you think that you hear people's feelings better than a sighted person, maybe?
I don't think so. I think that, well, I know that when you lose one sight, your other senses do not increase. So that's a common misconception. But what happens is you pay attention more. Like, even if you close your eyes now, you will hear things that you don't even pay attention to because you're so used to looking at it, So right now, like, I hear my air conditioning, I can hear my, refrigerator humming over there. I hear my ceiling fan in my room over there, so I can hear all of that. But if you close your eyes, I think you will hear it too. And when I'm in mediation, I don't necessarily hear like their emotions more or anything like that. To me, it's normal. But instead of looking at them to see, "Oh man, this person is sad," or "This person is happy," I hear it in their voice. But to me, it's normal. And so that's the way. I don't know. I hope I answered your question. To me, it's normal.
Well,
Faith,
I think in a way you're saying that you are listening better because you're paying more attention to it, which is, you know,
Yeah,
I think a lot of times we don't.
I tell my brothers, I'm like, hey, I know you hear me, but you're not listening. You know? You're not hearing me at all. So maybe.
Faith, this is Sheila. First of all, I want to say thank you for sharing your powerful and amazing story. It was really, really exciting just to hear about your journey, not just as a mediator, but just your life journey. I just think there's a lot to be learned, just how you have experienced life and you've used every experience as a platform to catapult yourself to the next stage of your journey. And I just want to say thank you for that. But my question is, have you ever co-facilitated a mediation? And if so, what was that like?
I did with Marcy one time, and it was good. You know, it was good. Me and Marcy, we bounced ideas off of one another, and we were able to work together to come up with different ideas and ways to get it done. Because you know, that was in my very early stages too, and I thought for sure, I'm like, oh, we're not going to get this one done because these guys are being, you know, whatever. But Marcy, you know, Marcy was a great, she was a great mentor, and she, you know, she didn't push me. She didn't push me at all, but she, you know, she bounced an idea off of me, or what do you think about this, or what have happened if they do this? I'm like, oh, okay, you know, just got me to use different parts of my brain to think about different options and different ways to get it done. So it went well, I think. You know, Marcy, what do you think? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, it went really, really well because you picked up on things that I didn't pick up on. So we went back and forth about, okay, but did you hear this? Well, I heard this. Well, what about this? So we bounced off of each other extremely well, and we did get it resolved. And I think they were kind of shocked that we did get it resolved. But yeah, it was fun. I had a blast doing it.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It's like when we were first over there, we're at the Trinity building.
Right, right. Faith, do you mind if I share a story about when we were traveling?
Oh goodness. Oh no, not that one. Yes.
Thank you. This is a story about Faith and myself. We were traveling to Dallas for a TAM conference, matter of fact, and we decided to fly up instead of me driving up. And we got to the airport, and the guy immediately turned to me and started asking questions about Faith and not addressing the questions to Faith. And I just looked like, she's here, she can hear you. She's perfectly fine in answering her own questions. And Faith said, would you like to ask me the questions regarding me, please? And it never hit me about those situations until I actually saw it firsthand. Faith would commiserate with me, and I'm just like, I didn't really understand until I saw it firsthand. And then I thought, that's just so insulting. She's blind, she's not deaf, she's fully capable of doing anything she wants to do. All you need to do is turn to her and ask her the questions about, do you have your ticket? Where would you like to sit? Just minor things. And being around Faith, it has opened my eyes to disabilities and understanding disabilities. And sometimes what we may think is an innocent gesture or misstep, it's really huge. And sometimes it's really insulting to some people. But Faith has opened my eyes to a world of being very, very aware of what you say, how you say it, how you treat a disabled individual, because they don't always need help. They're not like totally incapable of taking care of themselves or anything like that. And it just opened my eyes, and it gave me a different perspective all the way around. And after a while, I just forget Faith is blind, because Faith does so much and she participates in so many things. She is a world champion beatball player. Her team has won what, 5 championships, world championships?
9.
9. Oh, I'm my 9 world championships. She plays a blind version of dodgeball. Faith travels nationally and internationally. So Faith does so many things. I'm just like, geez, I don't even get to do half that stuff. And I forget that Faith is blind, but it doesn't really register anymore because Faith does so much and everything else. It's just like, okay, well, Faith is traveling. She's doing this, she's doing that. So it opened up my eyes to somebody who is different from me or does things differently from me, but it also makes you realize it's just a different way of doing things. But it's not that she's handicapped, she's handy able, she's not disabled, she just do it in a different way. So, you know, that's my personal takeaway from everything.
Quick funny story. So I don't remember who was all in the car, but it was me, Marcy, I think Evelyn and somebody else. And I don't know if we're going to lunch or we're going to a conference or what, but
It
we're
was
driving.
lunch.
It was lunch. Okay. And
Mhm.
we're driving around this parking, the parking lot, not the parking lot, what was it? It
Parking
was
garage, we was coming back
parking
from lunch.
garage. Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're driving around this parking garage, and we're looking. Well, Marcy is looking. Everybody's looking for an opening for a parking spot, and they're looking. And we went up and down, up and down. We're just going around and around and around. And I'm like, there's one right there. And Marcy hits the brake. Boom! Where? Where? And everybody's looking around, and I'm like laughing. It was funny to me because I'm like, y'all sighted people. I love you. It was funny to me.
It was funny. It really was funny, but that's, you
They're
know,
like, Faith can't see. Like, wait, there's no freaking spot. It was
but
funny.
that's the humor in Faith in regards to this doesn't slow her down. It's just a different way of doing things. And sometimes people don't realize that. So yeah, she's pulled tricks on me as well.
It was funny.
Rick, it looks like you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Faith. This is Rick. I really appreciate your energy and just your story and sharing. One thing I wondered that I've heard that it's good to specialize when you're a mediator, and you were talking about getting your practice going. I wonder if that's something that you've thought about, specializing in handicap mediation, or I don't know, your experience with civil rights, because I'm thinking about that along my lines, not the same subject, but specializing. If it's important as a mediator to specialize in a certain area, if you might have a more successful experience. So thank you. Go ahead, Faith.
Okay. Me personally, I'm not going to specialize in anything. If I ever decide to leave the TWC, then I will. If it was going to be a specialization, it will probably be in employment because I've been doing that for so long. But you know, with my business, I'm not going to specialize in anything. I'm going to learn as much as I can in different types of mediation areas, and you know, see what happens. I think that if you can specialize in something that you're passionate about, you know, that would be great. But me personally, I'm not going to specialize in anything. And, you know, it would be just, if anything, you know, I would 100% want to, I think I'll be silly, you know, me being a person with a disability, not knowing anything about disability rights or the ADA or anything like that. So I'm, you know, I'm going to learn more. I know like a lot about it right now, and I'll probably just learn more as I go.
Thank you, Faith.
Yep. I don't have any questions. I have lots of stories.
Yes, she does, very much so.
Thea, did you have a question?
I'm not sure that this is a question, Faith. It may just be kind of like comment more, but I guess I'm inspired by, you know, hearing your story, and I heard you say that you really love, like you fell in love with mediation, and I mean, I definitely had that experience myself, and I feel like others probably have as well. I wonder if you could say more about that, I guess, and or like, I don't know, just kind of, that's something that I find inspiring, I guess, to talk about. And also, I think just what's inspiring to me too is this idea of kind of working through challenges that stand in the way to kind of doing something that we love, right? And for me, it's a lot of times it's like dealing with the emotions of people in the room with me during mediation. And sometimes I think I'm just not cut out for it. So kind of just hearing how you've done it, you know, despite challenges. I mean, maybe that's kind of cliche, but I don't know if this is a question or a comment, or you have anything to add. But.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's different, right? Everybody's different. And like I said, I had a really good mentor, Marcy and Evelyn, they were great. And then when Evelyn left and, I was solely, I don't want to say dependent, but Marcy was my mentor. And I'm never going to forget this. My very first mediation, it was supposed to be a 4-hour mediation. And that mediation took all day because I was freaking out, and I was just listening to every single thing. People get in mediation and they just want to talk and talk and talk, which is fine. And I didn't know how to cut them off or say, hey, I need to move on to the other party or anything like that. So I just let them talk, and just kept talking. This guy just kept talking and talking and talking. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, eventually I need to go to the other side, or I need to go speak to the other side. And finally there was a break in there, and I'm like, hey, let me go speak to the other side. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Faith, you're not cut out for mediation. You're supposed to be done in 4 hours. It is already, you've been in mediating right now for 6 hours, and you still haven't even gotten down to the negotiation part. You're gonna be here all night. You're gonna be here all day. So I'm like, maybe this wasn't for me. Maybe, I just had all these doubts in my head. And I know I was getting on Marcy's nerves because I kept saying, Marcy, I really think this is a cause case. I really think it's a cause case. And she's like, Faith, you got this, go do this. And she just kept sending me away. And I was like, I'm not going to be a great mediator. I'm not going to be great. But, I just kept fighting through it. And I'm like, okay, apply what you know, and get through this. So, once I got past it, and it did end up being a cause case. This guy had a really, really good case, and he had a recording and everything. It was great. And he could have gotten way much more, than what we resolved for. But the whole point was we're supposed to resolve, not trying to get somebody, rich or whatever. So that's what I was, telling him. So, after we got it done, I get off at 4 o'clock. It was, it was like 5:02 or something by the time we got done with the mediation. And I remember, and Marcy, I don't know if you remember this, but I mean, my very first times I mediated, I would go to Marcy, and I'm not in tears, but I'm like almost in tears. I'm like, I'm not going to be a great mediator. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, look, we're supposed to be done at, this time. Look what time it is. I already missed the bus. I'm not going to get home until 7, and I can't keep doing this. I don't want to do it anymore. And Marcy was like, Faith, you got this. She's like almost ignoring me. I don't know if you guys know Marcy, but Marcy gets her nails done all the time. And she's like clickety clack. She's over there just typing away, and I'm over here fussing, just fussing. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to get through this. But, having that type of encouragement, for me at least, that type of encouragement, and having with my even though I say I'm going to give up, I don't really like to start stuff and not finish it. Those types of things help me get through, all those similar mediations where I'm having doubts in my mind that I'm not going to be able to get through this, and I would say practice makes perfect, because after that very long, very first mediation that was supposed to be for 4 hours, but it went longer than that. After that, then I began to figure it out. Hey, this is how you politely cut somebody off. This is how you, break and go to the next session, to the other party. This is how you get through these. And once you get that confidence, and once you get that experience in, then it'll get that much easier. And that's just me. That's with anybody. You don't have to have a disability or not have a disability. Right. That's with anybody. So. Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
A little context about what Faith was explaining. I kept telling her she could do it because she kept doubting herself, and she had all the tools necessary to go in there and do a job. And I reminded her, I said, you can take some of my tips, but make them your own, because you're Faith. You have a way of doing things. You can take my ideas, but make them your own. You go in there, you let them know that you understand the case, you command the room, you got confidence that you can hear both sides and work together to do that. So I had to keep reminding her. It's kind of like a mother bird pushing a baby bird out of the nest. Baby bird, it's time to fly. And she flew. She flew great. And it's the same thing. It's just a matter of knowing, yes, it's scary. My first mediation, I was scared. I was scared to death at TWC, because I'm like, okay, am I going to do this right? This is my job. This is not volunteer. Oh my gosh. And then I realized I can do this. I'm equipped to do this. I can just go in there, be myself, and sit down, meet the parties where they're at, not them meet me where I'm at, but meet them where, and then take them to where we need them to go to reach a resolution. So it takes time, but always remember, you got the tools necessary. Are you going to make mistakes? Yes, you're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes in mediations. And some of those I think about going, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But at the end of the day, everything is a learning process. And because you are a member of our organization, you have resources. You can always call anybody and go, hey, look, I need to pick your brain. How would you handle this? How would you say this? And that's the beauty of having organizations where you can reach out to somebody and you can tap their brain and you can say, hey, look, can I brainstorm with you for a second? Well, what about, not giving them all the details, but just bounce some ideas off of them. Or how should I say this that is really going to resonate with them? So you got avenues, you got opportunities, you got resources, you got a lot of resources. If you look at this room, you got a whole lot of years in this room. So you always got places to go. And more importantly, believe in yourself because you can do it.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you both. That was very inspiring.
Good.
Wonderful.
Again, if we don't have questions, I got lots of stories. Okay.
We have time for another story. We're going to be sending a link out in the chat though. So if everyone could click on it, it's just going to be a short survey about the mediation today and some things that you're interested in. But
Okay.
please continue, Faith.
Okay. Another story. Let me get a good one in. Okay. All right. Here's one. All right. So I had and these are mainly going to be in-person mediations. So it's just so funny people's reactions toward me. Okay. So I had an in-person mediation session, and where I work, we do employment discrimination. So this particular case, it was a sexual harassment case, and so the complaining party's attorney, he wanted $100,000, right? They wanted $100,000, and the other guy, they came down from New York, and they're like, we're not paying six figures, we'll do whatever whatever they're saying. So when I first initially got started with the mediation, the complaining party, she told her attorney, she's loud, like quote unquote whispering, but she's loud whispering to her attorney, types of things. We can't say those things to her. She's blind. So she's like basically saying that, either, I'm not sexually active or I don't know about sex or something like that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, so I had to assure this woman who's my age, and I'm like, look, I'm a mediator. It doesn't matter whether or not, I had a similar situation, or whether or not I have sex, or whether or not I don't have sex. I'm 100% completely capable of doing this mediation. You can say whatever to me, I will not be offended. You're not going to offend me. Forget the cane. A lot of times I have to hide my cane so people can stop looking at it. So I said, forget the cane, talk to me. And hopefully we'll get through this. We did end up resolving that case. Oh my gosh, that one took forever too. We started at 12. I didn't leave there. I was the last person to leave the building. We got done at 8. It was bad. That was a bad mediation. But she got her $100,000. She got her $100,000. Oh, thanks. Anyway, so that was a story. Another one where I was talking about hiding my cane, and it's funny, in the blind community, when you're first learning how to use your cane, especially for those we call them rebellious blind people, or those blind people who were once sighted and then went from sighted to being blind, they like to hide their cane. They're ashamed of their disability in the beginning, because they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to deal with society and how society's reaction to them being blind is. So anyway, so I said that because I said, I have to hide my cane so people can talk to me. So that's happened on numerous occasions. And this particular story, it wasn't with the complaining party, it was with the responding party. You have 4 guys in the room. I'm in here with 2 attorneys and 2 representatives in this face-to-face mediation. What's going on is, I'm talking to them, and I'm giving them feedback about how to resolve the case, and they instead of instead of asking questions, about the case or anything about mediation, they're asking me specific questions about my blindness. And again, that is fine, but we're trying to mediate a case right now. So the next time I came in, I left my cane outside of my room. And I think I think it helped, because after that they begin to focus. They begin to focus on what we're here for. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you guys, or what we can do to try to resolve. What can we do to resolve? So when I did that, I believe that helped. And I really honestly think that, in situations like that, people are just not used to being in, people are just not used to being around blind people, or being around people with a disability, or anybody, or people who are different than them, So that's what I honestly think. Another story is this girl complaining party. She brought her baby, and her little boy, it wasn't really a baby. I think he had to be like 3 or something like that. And well, he was probably older than 3 because he could talk. So I don't know how old he was. He was old enough to ask questions. So he was like, so if you can't see, how can you know where to go? And the mom was like, don't ask that question. Don't ask that question. I'm like, no, you can ask that question. So I answered this little question or whatever and walk out or whatever. And when I come back in, this little boy, he fell in love with me. And he's like, hey, and he comes in and he's like running at me. I'm like, oh gosh, hey baby, hey baby, how are you? He turned out to be cute. So but anyways.
I love that. I love that, like, sometimes it sounds like people almost connect with you
Mhm,
once they have the opportunity to really talk to you openly
mhm.
about your disability, that then they connect to you as a person. So
Yeah.
I like that eventually people are able to kind of like tune in and connect with you as a person.
Yeah, and I will hope that I know it's time to go. I hope that happens, sooner rather than later. At TAM, I feel like I'm always hanging on Marcy's arm. But this last time at TAM, I wanted to go to a different breakout room, and Marcy wanted to go to a second one. So we broke off, and I went, alone or whatever. And it was really great because I was able to, I meet new people on my own. I feel like that sometimes when I'm with Marcy, I believe that, just like when Marcy was saying at the airport, people are more willing to speak with her rather than me. So when I went off on myself, it gave people an opportunity to come and speak to me, or just speak to me as a normal person. So it was great. So I hope that happens more so in the future. But hey, you guys, thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I hope that I was able to answer any questions, and